Alright guys, as promised, I have a full review of Brioni EDP, latest release from this house. And this is a house that I'm not too familiar with. They don't have a lot of fragrances. I mean, in fact, I had sampled some of their previous fragrances. They're completely gone. I think they're completely discontinued. But now they have launched a new fragrance, just Brioni EDP, created by perfumer Michel Almairac. And I've got all the information for you on this one today. But I'm also going to go ahead and also talk about Michel Almairac as a perfumer and highlight some of his fragrances, the ones that I have in my collection. I do want to do further videos highlighting perfumers and their creations, and I thought this would be a great excuse for me to not only review the latest fragrance he's created for Brioni, it's Brioni EDP, plus talk about some of his fragrances. So if you want to find out about Brioni EDP, plus discover some fragrances that Michel Almairac is known for, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian with Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews. Yes, today I'm talking about Brioni EDP from an Italian fashion men's clothing house called Brioni, and this is the latest fragrance that they have launched. I don't think they've had many fragrances. I think they've had 2 or 3 in the past, and I had sampled 1 or 2 of them, but in passing never really owned anything. But a few months ago, I think 2 or 3 people told me about this launch, and I had first gone to the Brioni website to find out about it, and it wasn't shipping to the States yet, but later I went again and there was a way to to ship to the USA, so I ordered this directly from Brioni's website. Later on I was looking for some more fragrances on Neiman Marcus. Now it is selling on Neiman Marcus website as well. So I'll let you know all about Brioni EDP 2021 launch, plus let you know about some of my favorite Michel Almairac fragrances. But before I do, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. How many of you know this Italian fashion house, men's fashion house of Brioni? I think it is men's fashion house. I think they're known for suits and things like that, Italian design, and I'm not the type that wears those, that kind of clothing, but this fragrance really got me excited because it features violets as a note. And I was telling everyone in a video a couple days ago of fragrances I've been anticipating. Seems like violet's having a moment. I think I'm seeing violets pop up quite a bit in fragrances. Definitely is full on here with this particular fragrance, and there are many others that I see violets pop up in. So if you like violets in fragrances, definitely check this one out. But for me, this is also an ozonic fragrance, and violets generally are powdery as a flower, but when they're using the leaves, it comes off very ozonic, almost like cucumbers. And for me, this is, even though they're saying it's an ozonic accent for top notes, I feel like there's a major dose of something violet leafy at the top. But this is a 2021 launch. Perfumer is Michel Almairac. It's $120 for a 100 ml bottle, eau de parfum concentration. And I would call this a woody floral fragrance. Ozonic, woody ozonic, something like that. I guess I didn't really look into what style this would be, but that's after wearing it, that's what I would call this. Notes for Brioni EDP 2021 are, for top notes, ozonic accent, pink peppercorn, crisp green apple. Heart notes, violet, ambroxan. Base notes, tonka beans, cashmere, soft musk. So these notes I took directly off of Brioni's website. Cashmere, soft musk. Is this cashmerean in addition to musk, or are they talking about the musk directly off of cashmerean or cashmere wood as a note? It's kind of up in the air, but I think it's a combination of the two. That's just my envisioning or experience with this particular fragrance. But this fragrance starts off right off the bat very ozonic, and ozonic fragrances are watery. Always say this, just cut through a cucumber, and what you see inside is the experience of this fragrance. So it's a major cooling kind of gelatinous, watery kind of succulent experience right up top. That's the first blast. It is very, very invigorating. It is very, very crisp and crunchy, because I also associated ozonic fragrances with having a crispness and a crunchiness. You can totally experience this here at the top. We do also have a little bit of spice from the pink peppercorn, definitely there. Adds a little bit of a zing to the fragrance, a little spice, a kick, not too much, a little. And then they're also going to the extent of calling another note crisp green apple. I'm already getting crispness from the ozonic touches. Here we have a little more crispness from the green apple. You do experience it. It is lightly fruity at the top, definitely noticeable. Now heart notes is when it starts getting powdery, and here violets take over. And again, I think either they're using for the ozonic accent at the top violet leaves. They could also be using cucumbers, although cucumbers have a tendency to go a little marine. This doesn't really go there, so I'm just thinking they are using violet leaves to call it an ozonic accent, which is what traditionally violet leaves are used to do. Anyway, violets at the heart is prominent. It's really, really prominent here, and also with ambroxan. Personally, I think this fragrance is mostly about the violet, the ozonic accent at the top, and then of course this ambroxan note, totally noticeable ambroxan note. So you do have touches of little ambery touches, little light, very, very light aquatic touches, ambery touches, and musky touches, all from the ambroxan note here in the heart notes stage of the fragrance. Now the fragrance does settle to a little light woody touches and a little musk. Of course, it's definitely musky, but there are light woody touches running throughout the fragrance that it settles to. You still experience the ozonic touches. I feel like ozonic is running this particular fragrance. It's definitely prominent here with this fragrance. I like that about it. I like ozonic fragrances. The experience is fun, you know? It's kind of almost like thinking it's going to go marine, but it doesn't, because it's a little bit of a thick water experience rather than flowy water, but not marine kind of a thing, you know? That's what this fragrance is wearing like to me. But you know, I find it to be a very, very classy fragrance, not overwhelming. I think it's perfectly fitting for Brioni's image as a, you know, clothing designer, suits maker, things like that. Very elegant and classy, kind of gentlemanly, you know, clothing. Plus, they have made a fragrance that matches that visual perfectly, I think. Really does. So because of that, we're getting everything very, very in levels of classiness. Nothing screams too loud. It's not subdued. You get a great smell. It smells really, really great. You do experience the smells, and I like that about it because it is very, very prominently smelling. But nothing is overwhelming, you know. It's just the right dosage. You have the right amount of the smell and performance, and everything kind of goes hand in hand, perfectly created to match the visuals of this brand Brioni, and with their fragrance Brioni EDP 2021 launch. So that's what I think about this fragrance. If you're the type of person that likes your fragrances loud, attention-getting, this is definitely not it. If you're the type that wears suits, you're going out, business meeting, things like that, you're always around people, connecting people, you know, networking, you know, meetings, things like that, you could wear something like this perfectly. Because as I said, it doesn't scream, it's classy for this kind of a setup. And it will, I mean, it will get attention because it is, the smell is loud, but it's very, very pleasant smell. And of course, it doesn't have the big trails that a lot of attention-getting fragrances have. This one is not. Still noticeable, but enough to give it a good balance of noticeable but not overwhelming to people. That's what I think about this one. I like it. I do enjoy it. It'll be perfect for, I think, situations where I want to wear a fragrance that's crisp and fresh and, you know, powdery as well, because violets definitely are powdery, and this does have a powdery experience, and I think that would pull for something like this. If I want to get attention, if I want people to notice my fragrance, if I want to leave a major trail going down halls and things like that, this is definitely not going to be it, because as I said, it totally matches the visual of the brand with their suits and things like that. Very, very classy, you know, masculine offering from this house. And I think Michel Almairac has done a pretty good job. And I should say, you know, he created a fragrance called Fahrenheit, which also focuses on violets. Does this remind me of Fahrenheit? Well, kind of, sort of, lightly hinting at it. They're completely different fragrances, whereas Fahrenheit is a combination of violets, perhaps violet leaves as well, with leather. There's no leather here, absolutely not. And so they're different, you know? They're similar and then they're different as well. So it makes sense that he would do something like this. But for me, I find this to be a fusion of something that reminds a little bit at Fahrenheit, but for me it's more about a fusion of Moschino Toy Boy, a little bit, the sweetness from there, and the ozonic touches that are in there, with Gucci Pour Homme 2. I find that Gucci Pour Homme 2 is very, very ozonic with violet leaves, lots of them. And then something like Lalique Hommage à la Homme, and then even going to the extent of something like Kiton Men. All of those fragrances combined, but a lot more modern, you know, a lot more oomphy. Like there's a substance about this. The crisp crunchiness is really, really prominent, and you do experience it here, whereas some of the other ones might be a little, tired, a little old smelling. Here we have something very, very modern. It's a very, very modern interpretation of a fusion of those kind of fragrances. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Brioni EDP. Check it out if you like classy, gentlemanly, dressy fragrances. I think this will satisfy. Let's do a few fragrances from Michel Almairac. He's a perfumer that I guess I first discovered when I first started, reading up on perfumers and what their creations are and things like that. I did notice that he had created Fahrenheit, which is this right here, right there. Violets, it's totally about violets. But I also noticed he did a lot of fragrances for Bond Number 9, which were not my favorite. Like one of my most despised fragrances is Coney Island. A lot of people know from that previous channel. He created that one, which I cannot stand. It's a fragrance I just couldn't tolerate with its overdose of like marine cologne kind of seaweed notes. But he's done a lot of fragrances, and I've got several here. He also has a brand with his sons, one of his sons I think, called Parle-moi de Parfum, where some of the, well not some of them, all of the fragrances are created by him as well. And I'm going to let you know a little bit about some of the fragrances that he's worked on. But I think I'm going to go ahead and start with Dior Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit goes back to like 1988, 1987, I think it's 1988. And this is a really, really great ozonic fragrance. As I'm smelling it out of the bottle now, I get a lot of ozonic touches. Similar to the Brioni, it does remind me of that crisp, crunchy, cucumber center-like experience. But this one is getting a lot woodier and of course a lot more leatherier. It does have leathery touches, but a great scent. It's a great scent. You can totally pick up the violets in here. I think you can actually smell violets as a flower more in here than in here. I think this one for me acts more, the Brioni acts more violet leafy rather than the actual flower where you can smell real violets. Does that make sense? Because you can't really pick up the violet-y smell in the leaves of the violet leaves is what I'm trying to say. The next fragrance I'm going to talk to you about is another fragrance he created, and it is a Lalique fragrance, and it's also Hommage, but it's not Hommage à la Homme. This is Hommage à la Homme Voyager, which Michel Almairac has created. And this is a great patchouli, spicy fragrance. Really smelling great, I like this patchouli note. And this is targeted to men. Of course, Dior's Fahrenheit is also targeted to men. And if you are looking for a masculine targeted designer patchouli, such a great fragrance. Do check it out. It is completely different than the other fragrance, the original Hommage à la Homme, which I said is very violet leaf forward. This doesn't smell too much like the original, so there's not much of a violet touch here. It's mostly about patchouli, cardamom, oak moss, and things like that, but a great, great patchouli fragrance, masculine targeted. So that's Lalique Hommage à la Homme Voyager. And speaking of another classic fragrance that focuses on patchouli, Michel Almairac worked on a fragrance called Zino Davidoff. I think this also goes back to 1988. And here we have loads of patchouli. And somewhat, these two do remind me of one another. Somewhat. Not a lot. They're not very close. This would be definitely more of a modern interpretation of this one. This one also has a little animalic touches under there. Pretty, it could be pretty rough. but it smells so good. Really, really great smelling fragrance, but this one is all about patchouli, sandalwood, vanilla, lavender, rosewood, and a few additional aromatic notes and things like that. Great classic fragrance that you can get for really inexpensive. This is Zino Davidoff from Davidoff. Now I'm mostly covering my collection here. I don't have every single fragrance Michel Almairac has worked on or created, but this next one is from the house of Bentley. It's Bentley for Men Absolute, and a lot of people say this is kind of like an alternative to the discontinued Gucci Pour Homme, the first one, which is woody, incensey. I agree. Never wore a full bottle of the original Gucci Pour Homme, but I have smelled samples people had given me, and I agree this is similar with cedar, olibanum for the incensey touches, pink pepper, papyrus, oud, and things like that. Now also go to the extent of offering up an alternative to this even from the house of Parle de Parfum called Papyrus Oud, this one right here. So both of them do remind me of Gucci Pour Homme, the original, with the woody incense thing. But when you wear them side by side, they will have differences. They're not identical, but both of them are created by Michel Almairac, and I think they could be definitely alternatives for the now discontinued Gucci Pour Homme, which is a great scent. And both of these are great. And as I said, separately they'll remind you of one another. Side by side there are some minute differences that I think definitely you can notice if you study some fragrances and things like that. So great fragrances created by Michel Almairac. It's Bentley for Men Absolute, and this is Parle de Parfum's Papyrus Oud. Check those out if you don't know them. Another fragrance from the house of Le Labo. This is Ambrette 9. Ambrette 9 is a very subtle, subdued kind of a fragrance, very musky and slightly fruity undertones. Ambrette 9 focuses on the ambrette note, the ambrette seeds note. It's also known as musk mallow, and it is like the main star here with that note. Obviously, Le Labo fragrances, the name of the fragrance is what the main note is in a fragrance, and that's what I like about this brand, because you know what you're going to get into when you look at a fragrance with its name. If you want a fragrance focusing on ambrette, this is the one you would try for. So this one is very ambrette forward, as I said, and ambrettes tend to be fruity, definitely musky, light medicinal touches, and light boozy touches as well, but lots of musk. It's a great musky fragrance, and I find ambrette to be very sexy. And even though this is subtle, a little subdued, which is what typically ambrette note comes off like, I think it's a great scent from Le Labo, created by Michel Almairac. So check out Ambrette 9. I think you're going to like that one if you haven't checked it out yet. Moving on to Parle de Parfum. The one that I really love from this house is Mile High. Is this Mile High? No, that's not Mile High. This one is Mile High right here. Mile High is a combination of pineapple, immortelle, patchouli, and then there's also some tonka beans in there. So it's the pineapple that's sweet and syrupy, drippy, meshed with a very dry, everlasting flower, immortelle, which has these kind of like brown sugar caramelly nuances, so the two together, really wonderful combination, I think. Then they throw in the patchouli, which is also very, very sexy, earthy, woody, and then tonka beans together. I think this is such a great fragrance. My favorite fragrance from Parle de Parfum. And as I said, Parle de Parfum is run by the son of Michel Almairac, who is a perfumer who's been making perfumes for a long time. If you don't know this one, check it out. It's a great scent. The next one I'm going to talk to you about is Guimo de Noel, this one right here, another Parle de Parfum fragrance. And if you like fragrances like Love Don't Be Shy, and you're kind of like ticked off at its reformulations and things like that, definitely check out this one. I think this is a great alternative. In fact, I featured it in an Alternatives to Love Don't Be Shy video. This is Orange Blossom, Sugar, Vanilla. It's sweet, gourmandish with citrus floral, That combination is match made in heaven. I really love that combination, and this smells fantastic because of the combination. Again, it's Parle de Parfum, Guimo de Noel. Check it out if you don't know it. The next fragrance is Milky Musk from Parle de Parfum. Again, the fragrances from this brand are all created by Michel Almairac. This is a really, really cozy, woody fragrance. Really perfect to wear. It's not one of those really loud fragrances. It's Milky Musk is what it's called. Sandalwood tends to have a milky quality to it, milky accord, and and so they have created a fragrance mostly with sandalwood and musk, and it wears close to the skin. It has great longevity. It's also very, very sexy, but very creamy, milky, but all woods and musk. Great scent. Check it out, Milky Musk, from the house of Parlez-moi de Parfum. That's the last Parlez-moi de Parfum fragrance I'm going to talk to you about, but we're going to move on to two more fragrances, and that'll be the end of the video. But two fragrances from the house of Bottega Veneta that are from their Parco Palladiano collection that are unisex targeted, but I think they might lean a little feminine. One more than the other. The one that leans a little more feminine is Lilia, this one right here, or Lila. So it's focusing on lilacs, and I recently featured this in a lilac fragrances video. It's all about lilacs with musk, marine notes, and sea salt. So if you like lilacs and the smell of the sea with saltiness and muskiness, definitely recommend you try that one. And if you are curious to learn more about lilacs as a note in fragrances, definitely check out my lilac video. So this is Lila from the house of Bottega Veneta, created by Michel Almairac. And this next one is focusing on magnolias from the house of Bottega Veneta from their Parco Palladiano collection. Magnolia is so good, really, really good. It does remind me a little bit of Apogee from Louis Vuitton, but it's a little different. This is a lot greener and a little more citrusier, but this features magnolia, grapefruit, lily of the valley, green notes, bergamot, musk, ISOE super. Fresh floral fragrance, and I've spoken about magnolias recently in my Dior Eden Rock video. Magnolias don't have a very, very strong smell. I get a very lemony undertone with when I smell magnolias, especially when they've been baking under the sun. You can totally pick it up here, very, very prominent, and I think both of these fragrances, definitely, you know, feminine leaning floral fragrances, unisex targeted though, and I think perfect to wear in the summertime when you want some fresh fragrances. And if you're looking for fresh floral fragrances, these will do for you right here. So Bottega Veneta Lila and Bottega Veneta Magnolia from the Parco Palladiano collection, and that's the last two fragrances created by Michel Almairac for this video. These are the only fragrances I have, although I have some more fragrances from Parlez-moi de Parfum. I did not want to make this a Parlez-moi de Parfum video. It was focusing on his own creations. Anyway, I appreciate you tuning in today to watch my full review of Brioni EDP, recent launch, and also find out about some of the fragrances that Michel Almairac has created. Let me know what your thoughts are on Brioni EDP. Are you a fan of this fragrance yet? Are you curious to try it? And have you been looking into it? And now that you've watched my video, will you rush out to experience it, or, you know, get a sample or something? Let me know. Put a comment down so I can find out. And also let me know what your thoughts are on these fragrances that I spoke to you about that are created by Michel Almairac. Are you familiar with this perfumer? Did you know that he created these two 80s powerhouses, Fahrenheit and Zino Davidoff? Let me know. Put a comment down so I can find out. And also, if you have another favorite Michel Almairac fragrance that I did not discuss with you today, please let me know. Put a comment down so I can find out. Either way, guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. One more thing I should say, if you haven't yet checked out my Twisted Lily sample kit, it has 5 samples, and it's a great way for you to discover some of my favorite fragrances in a sample set at Twisted Lily. It's only $25, and you can use Perfume Guide 10 to save 10% off the kit, which comes with a bunch of samples, as I said. And then there is a coupon in that kit that you can use towards buying a fragrance to save $25. So basically, the kit's paid for, but you actually got a discount for it. You're getting more reimbursed. And the kit comes like this. I'll show you an opened kit right here, like this. It says Twisted Lily. And inside, there is a sample set like this. And there are samples in here, including Maison Francis Kurkdjian, Montal. And it comes with cards with the information as well, like this, and you can take notes down and things like that. So I have a link to it in the info box below. You can go check that out. And I think it's a great way for you to discover some of my favorite fragrances. And there is a mystery sample in there that's perfect for summertime, which is just around the corner. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Otherwise, please like this video, please share it. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.